been delivered to all the residents, and thanking the Achersons for their grills for this year. And I haven't personally asked for those. Have you had any communication with Jeff regarding that? Using his grills? I'm assuming they will be available, but they've been thanked for them, whether we can get them or not. So.
We could reach out to another alternate.
Okay. And then I will be here. I will be in this country instead of Scotland during that time. I thought I was going to be gone, but I want to help with that like we did last year and participate.
Daryl, I know the fire chief said that Orem City has grills if we ever needed them as well.
That's great.
So,
Good.
okay.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you. Randy.
Thank you, Mayor. On a week ago Saturday, at the community center, Kelly Johnson, along with our emergency preparedness staff, we participated in a drill, so to speak, of a substantial use of our community center for the use of it being for the shelter in place. Sorry, I've lost my words here. I didn't make good notes here, but it was with Red Cross and several other organizations within the community, the Southern Baptist organizations within the community, the Southern Baptist in Spanish Fork CERT, along with our CERT. I'm probably forgetting other entities, but we had LD Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints representatives, as well as domestic violence participants, just a plethora of people who helped to put this together in a community. And it was a wonderful experience. I just was so appreciative of all the volunteer efforts and hours. And again, Kelly Johnson just did a wonderful job from morning till late afternoon, making sure that this was a great environment for our city to understand what it is for us to know where to go and what to do in case of an emergency. Youth Council, we have on a week from tonight, we're going to get together in preparation for Lindon Days. We will take your suggestion, Daryl, and put that forward to them as well. That was, I don't know of a location, Mayor. I'm assuming it's in this location, but it's going to be with getting ready for the swag for the 5K, as well as gearing up for the cardboard regatta that the youth like to.
We have a title to defend, Randy.
Yes,
the
we
cardboard
do.
regatta.
So we do.
Champions.
Yes, and so we're going to ask all the youth to bring some duct tape. I still have a good storage room full. My husband says it's got to go. He says, I am tired of holding on to the youth council. All the plethora of, it's just amazing how much it takes to do a cardboard regatta, how much duct tape. Senior Center, just as an FYI, last month we were supposed to have a barbecue, but the barbecue was rescheduled for Wednesday the 12th. So a week from tonight, from today, it needs to be a registration for those who are either a senior, have a senior in their family, or a grandchild, a great-grandchild, anything. Registration is $3 for this barbecue per person. It will be held at Pioneer Park, which is 150 South, 500 East, and they're going to have a wonderful gaggle of things to do that night, and Jamie always does a great job, and that's all I have.
What is the start time for that?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's 5, I think it's 7 o'clock. I probably didn't put that down. I have it right here. I have it right here.
And
No
what is
worries.
this city's definition of senior, age-wise?
You just come.
I'm
Yes,
there?
Yes. You are there.
If you have to ask who there.
You have a grandchild, so then you are a senior. Let's see, where is it? 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock p.m. with music, games, food, drinks, raffle prizes, and more. So
One more time on the date, I'm sorry.
it's Wednesday the 12th, and call by Monday, July 10th, to reserve your spot, says the flyer. And I'm going to give a phone number, and that's 801-769-8625, 8625. And it says, this is for seniors and their families, kids, grandkids, great-grandkids too, $3 per person. So I had to be rescheduled, so you get even more time to have something to do in the middle of July.
My
Okay.
birthday, do I get it free?
I will sponsor you. You're welcome.
All right,
Almost a senior.
Mike. Never a senior.
Forever young.
Forever young, that's right. All right, go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. I've had a couple citizens reach out to me. The first one is a fellow that was in our ward for a long time. He runs a landscaping, Big D landscaping. He just moved over by Pheasant Brook Park, and he cornered me and suggested that, well, their dog just got ran over and killed, but he just says that the traffic along that road there is just out of control. He's actually called the police, met with them, or talked to them, and they said that they're very concerned about that also, and said really it's up to the council to make some decisions as to what might be done there. So what I'm gonna suggest is, if you haven't already looked at that, maybe have someone go out and take a look at that. He said something where the children cross the road. I haven't had a chance to go out and look at it yet, but,
Is this on 800 West in
Yes.
front of Pheasant Brook Park?
yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's been a long time
Anyone else?
concern.
I think we have a calming bulbs.
We do. We have
One
some
of
pork
those
chops.
places.
Well,
in
he
there.
even
Where they go in the
indicated
park.
that was still an issue because they're still going through there pretty fast. Again, I don't know the.
I had one of our Linden Days moms, Little Miss Linden moms mention, she thinks there's a car dealership. The car dealerships, a lot of people are using that
Test
road to
driving.
test drive and
I can see that.
check the engine and rev it up, and
Yeah.
it's a residential street, so.
So again, if that's just something we could just take a look at, and if there's something
Sure,
that we
that's
can
the
do,
major contributor
great.
to the problem there.
I'd just like to be able to get back to him and let him know what's going on, so.
What we'll probably do first, we had some reports of speeding years, I mean, probably 15, 16, 17 years ago, along that roadway in front of the park, and we had a speed study done, and it warranted putting in some traffic calming devices, which was done, so we put in, I think there's 2 sets of chokers there that
Yes.
narrows the roadway.
And the residents
And-
say those are effective. They would love to see more traffic calming further south.
Okay, and so
Think.
what we'll probably do first is ask for our engineers to do a couple speed tests with our speed little radar cameras, and so it'll be a few weeks, but we will get back with you, Mike, so.
Well, that'd be great, thank you. You know, whether something comes to that or not, at least I think it's good to let them know that we're aware of it and we're
Okay.
interested in taking a look at it, so
And
thank you.
as the officers look for that, is it possible to take note if any of that is from the car dealership? If they happen to notice that.
Okay. Secondly is, today, I ran into one of the, I think her last name is Woods, one of the young ladies that was the first one in the Little Miss Linden royalty. And then she has a sister, a younger sister that just, I think, was in the royalty last year. And then she indicated that they have another sister that'll be coming up through the royalty. But she asked me a question that I don't know the answer to. She was wondering why they don't have a Miss Linden pageant as opposed to just a Little Miss Linden pageant. And my guess is that's probably been discussed. That's probably been,
Well, from what I understand, Miss Pleasant Grove is for all the young women that attend Pleasant Grove High School. And Pleasant Grove High School we share that high school. So, and
And the city helps sponsor that event as well, so we have
We
a couple $1,000s that we provide.
we've had many young women be queens or attendants from Linden and Miss Pleasant Grove.
all right.
And
So they're
part-
represented there.
And part of that is to understand that that's part of the Miss America pageant, the Miss Pleasant Grove.
qualified pageant. Yeah.
And so there's a whole set of things that have to be gone through to get in addition to the county title and the state title, to add a little Miss, or a Miss Linden.
All right, well, I knew there was an answer, so thank you. I believe that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I have nothing that needs to come here at this point.
All right, just a couple quick things. We had a visit from Speaker of the House, Brad Wilson, came down. Myself and Mike Florence and Adam were able to sit down with him and share some of the concerns and some of the issues that we kind of see at the local level, which was really nice to meet with him and his staff member. Hopefully, the next legislative session, we won't feel like we're getting a baseball bat like we have in the past on local issues and authority. And then we also, I met with, I don't know if you're familiar with a really great company we have here in Linden that's local, Intermountain Casting. They're a foundry, a 40-year-old company The next generation has now taken it over, and they are doing amazing, amazing things. If you ever, I went and toured their facility. They've hired engineering kids from UVU and BYU, and they've built custom robotic machinery to automate their system. They're getting huge, huge accounts to basically cast steel parts and components for large, large global corporations. They are looking to apply for a significant state grant, and so anyway, they're doing some amazing things. It's really impressive to see what we have right here in our own little town of Lindon. So they're in our industrial zone, so there's a really great ecosystem out there. And then had a lot of fun with Heath this week. We put together a little video that's going to be coming out for our Park with a C initiative, ballot initiative that's coming up in November. So had some fun. People participate in that in the community, hopefully to just educate our citizens about it and what's coming and what the benefits we've had. We've had tremendous benefits from that revenue source. So only 1 cent on every $10. So, and up to 50% of the folks that spend in Lindon are not Lindon residents, that we're capturing that. So, and it's a pretty ubiquitous revenue source now throughout all of Utah. So we're hopeful that, and our Parks and Rec, our Aquatic Center all benefit from that tremendously as amenities for the community. So anyway, that's coming. I'm not sure when, but anyway, that's it for me. And I will now turn time over to our administrator, Adam Cowie, for his report.
Yeah, just a few quick things. Just wanted to let you know here in this public meeting, the mayor texted everyone earlier today, but Don Peterson, our past Public Works Director of 32 years, he retired in 2016. He passed away on Sunday, and so that was sad news. He had not been doing well. His health was deteriorating, so it sounds like his funeral will be Saturday at 11 a.m. at the church building on 600 South, right next to Mazer Academy there.
Okay.
And they've coordinated with the police to take him by wagon from the church, horse and buggy or something there, from the church to the cemetery. So they think the interment will be about 12:30. So
In Lindon Cemetery.
yes. On just an FYI, Kathy's coordinating with the candidates to have a meet the candidates night. We're looking mid-October and just kind of juggling a couple dates, and so we'll let you know when that is planned once we hear back from all of the candidates. The ballots will be mailed out with these new dates that the state has changed. The election, they will be mailed out on the 31st of October. And for the overseas ballots, it goes out a couple weeks prior to that, I recall. So, fireworks restriction areas, the police department's been really helpful, put up all those signs last weekend, and there's maps available on the website. We've got a link here that people can go and look at those maps and download that information. And then also our AquaTrax app for the water tracking system, people can get on and download that. We did post something last week, and we had several people get on and we're having problems logging on. It asked for some information from your utility bill, and there were some clarifications that were needed, and so we think that's working correctly. Again, we're going to post some additional social media stuff after the holiday and see if we can get some more interest there. Just an FYI, Chief Brower gave me a few updates on some activities that they've had here recently. Our detectives identified a suspect related to some check fraud and vehicle burglaries, and as part of that, made some really big efforts on a crime ring that was occurring in the area and helped recover some stolen property, a lot of which was from Lindon. So kudos to them on that. They also were participating in a fraud and scam prevention presentation that was given to the seniors at the community center to help them avoid being victimized. Had some thefts that were deterred at Home Depot, and apprehended a suspect there. And then we had, just as an FYI, a fire at the solid waste transfer station down here on Saturday night. The garbage pile there started on fire. I don't think we know the cause of that yet, but certainly suspicious with fireworks season. And so encouraging people not to dispose of their fireworks in dumpsters or commercial dumpsters, and make sure that they're putting used fireworks in a bucket of water overnight before they dispose of those. So that's all I have, Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you. And yes, kudos to our police. They've been really busy. In fact, fun thing, I was at the Stadium of Fire in Provo Freedom Festival on Saturday night and saw 5 of our officers there working the event, and they wanted to thank Chief for that connection there. They were helping out at some of the BYU things in their off time, so.
Mayor, if I might,
Yes.
if you'd be so kind as to let me just express. I worked several years with Don Peterson, and I know many of us have felt this big loss, and for Marcia and her family, and just condolences. I know we had our little break here with the power outage, and so we weren't able to make it during that presentation time, but just our condolences to the whole Peterson family, and how big of a hole it is that Don has passed, and just a wonderful guy to work with. So for all those years I did. So thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
May I add one
Absolutely.
more thing that I forgot?
Yes.
When we were meeting for Lindon Days, we talked about the centennial celebration next year, and we discussed the possibility of putting on the home web page of Lindon City one of these top banner centennial buttons, rather than having them to search for it, so that it'd be more user friendly and hopefully get more people to
Sounds like a
find
great idea.
events. And I think they're going to attempt to do that, and I don't know if they needed to get approval from Adam or who on that, but that was an intent of that. Also, the logo that we discussed 2 weeks ago, the changes are being made. I should see that in the next few days, and I'll send that out to each of you. Okay?
Thanks.
Thank you for your good work on that. And Randy, thank you for those words about Don. He was an amazing individual. I know when he retired, it was one of the funnest retirements, because they made a book of all the sayings that he had about, I don't know if anyone can remember any of those, but he was a
Donisms.
character. Yeah. So happy trails to Don, and it'll be an honor to hopefully be able to come pay our respects to him this weekend. All right, that's it. That wraps up our reports. So we're now on item number 6. This is the approval of the minutes from June 19th, 2023. Any reviewed comments or changes from council?
I have a small one, Kathy. On page 9, line 20, you need to say life hacks, not lighthouse. Life hacks 101. That's a good question. It was during my council report, so. Oh, so, yeah. Here we go, Randy. Sorry. What line was it? Line 20, and I think it says lighthouse. Oh, yes. It needs to say life hacks. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right, anyone else?
I'll make a motion
Thank you.
to approve the minutes of June 19th, 2023, regular city council minutes as reviewed.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember McElby, seconded by Councilmember Vanchery. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the minutes are approved. Thank you unanimously. Then we move to item number 7. We have some consent agenda items that we're looking for approval on some surplus equipment.
Just
Motion?
yeah, go ahead. I don't even need to explain it. So
Okay.
Just because it was a consent agenda, I jumped in there. I will make a motion to, there it is, to approve the consent agenda as is stated in our staff report.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Powell, second, sorry, I said that wrong, Powell, seconded by Councilmember Broderick. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? All right, so we have our surplus equipment ready to go up for disposal. All right, then item number 8 is, this is a public hearing. We're going to be discussing the impact fee reduction to help with the moderate income housing.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Powell, seconded by Councilmember Magalby. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are now in a public hearing.
So, based on our conversation, our discussion item that we had at our last council meeting, this was direction from the council in order to meet one of our goals for the moderate income housing plan that we have. We had indicated that we would explore the reduction or waiver of fees related to moderate income housing units in new developments, and it was recommended that we waive the police and fire impact fees specifically related to those moderate income housing units in new development. So this is a resolution authorizing that to occur. Any questions on this?
If not, I'll make a motion.
We have the,
Oh, we have a public hearing.
Do we have any public comment? All right. Seeing no public comment, let's go ahead and close the public hearing. Anyone?
I'll move to
Like-
close the public hearing.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Vanchery,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Broderick. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, bringing this back to you, council. Any further discussion on this? Okay,
Go
on the
ahead, Mike.
resolution, we're ready.
I'll make the motion to approve and authorize the waiving of police and fire impact fees related to moderate income housing units in new developments and setting as an effective date, resolution number 2023-12-R.
All right, great.
I'll second.
Okay, well, we have a motion by Councilmember Vanchery, seconded by Councilmember Powell. Any further discussion, questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you again to Mike Florence, bringing forward those options and working so diligently on our housing report required by the state. What is our deadline for the next cycle?
August 1st.
August 1st, so,
Got it all filled out. I finished it today. I'm meeting with the representative with the Department of Workforce Services on Thursday to go through that and get her feedback, and so hopefully we only have to submit it once.
thank you. Thank you for your good work on that. All right, item number 9. This is also a public hearing. We're going to be looking at criminal code updates presented by our counsel, Brian Hawes.
Make a motion to open a public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Broderick, seconded by Councilmember Powell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we are in a public hearing and looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you. This really should be quick. What we're doing is just, last time we amended this code was in 2000, so 23 years ago. And we referenced specific chapters in that when we did that in 2000. The legislature's made many, many changes over the last 23 years. A lot of the drug charges that we prosecute and follow up are now in Title IV. The wildlife criminal violations for hunting and shooting and all of those types of things, those have been moved to a completely different statute as well. So I'm proposing that we just simply amend this to say I note that the code currently, the state code currently authorizes the city prosecutor to prosecute infractions and misdemeanors that are embodied in state law and in the state code. And so instead of referring to specific chapters and coming back every 2 or 3 years and amending this, we just simply adopt this broad language that lets us prosecute in any misdemeanor and infraction. So there are some misdemeanors, Class A misdemeanors that are reserved just to the county, so we accept those out. Did find a typo, second sentence in paragraph 1 says, as such, in additions to the infraction, it should be, strike that S, Kathy, so I'll work with you on getting that. But other than that, I'd present it to the council.
A lot of power to the Lindon City Attorney, I'm telling you.
Yeah. So originally, a lot of this was in the 76 code? and
Yeah,
so it's-
76, and that is mainly where they are, but the legislature has taken a lot of those out and separated them out into departments, workforce, Department of Family, DCFS, Family, and the domestic violence cases were moved to Title 77, so they've just done a lot of rearranging, so,
Didn't make it easy,
yeah.
whatever.
We, every year, we get a list of the changes that they've made to the code sections, and it literally is 30 to 40 pages where we have to go in and amend our informations to reflect the changes. So this is what we have been doing, and, you know, every city throughout the state, their prosecutors have been prosecuting. This just makes it so we don't have to come back every single time, every couple years.
Thank you
So-
for setting this up to be efficient. Yes, all right, very good. Council, any further questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
We need to close the.
Oh, sorry, to close the public hearing
Yeah, I guess we have to ask the public.
Got a motion.
for that as well. All
Close the public meeting.
right, we have a motion by Councilmember oh, I apologize. I'm a little bit out of order. This is a public hearing after the presentation. Do we have any comments or questions from the public regarding this agenda item? Okay, thank you. All right. We do have a motion on the table. Councilmember Magleby, seconded by Councilmember Powell. All in favor to close the public hearing?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we are closed. Council, then bringing this back to you for adoption.
I'm ready to move on it.
Go ahead.
With glasses. I move to approve ordinance 2023-10-0, amending chapter 9.04 of the Lindon City Code, updating the criminal code to be in conformance with the Utah code with that little tweak you mentioned.
The one little typo that I did not catch.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Councilmember Broderick, seconded by Councilmember Magleby. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right,
Thank you.
pretty simple. Thank you very much. Okay, now we will move on to item number 10. This is also a public hearing.
We'll make a
And
motion.
we would like, okay, yes,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I
Go
thought I
ahead.
caught you, but you were only breathing.
Want
Sorry.
to go ahead and invite our consultants to come forward to the table here, and then we'll have a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion by Councilmember Powell,
I'll second.
seconded by Councilmember Vanchery. All in favor to open a public hearing?
Aye.
All right. So noted. Okay, thank you so much. All right, we'll have this presented by Michael Florence,
One
and then
second,
he's going to
we'll
get
just-
that popped up. So hopefully you've had a chance to review there was an email that went out this today,
Yeah.
early afternoon, on this presentation, on the draft plan.
All right. Sorry, wrong page. There you go. Well, Mayor and council members, thank you for your opportunity for the opportunity to be here this evening. Lisa and I are excited to present the general plan to you tonight, and this has been a good process to go through. We started last April, and it was good to put a general plan committee together, and we've held some good open house meetings and received a lot of good feedback, and this has been a great process to go through. So Lisa's going to go through the general plan and give you an overview of that tonight, and Mary and I may interject at certain points, and then love to have some discussion with you after that. We do have an ordinance prepared for you when you are ready to adopt that, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. It's been fun working with you all on this process. We're excited to be at this point in the planning effort. So the general plan provides that overall vision for the community. It gives residents, leaders, developers, anybody with interest in the community a sense of, what you're about and where you want to go. So this is your vision document for the future. It's also used to help make decisions about capital improvements and just evaluating development proposals to make sure they align with the community vision. The plan is divided into 9 elements, as you see here. Several of those are required by state law, including the land use, transportation, moderate income housing, and a new one, the water use and preservation element, which Lindon is kind of leading the way in kind of seeing how this element can come together. And that's been evolving even as, we've been working through it in this process. And I'm sure there will continue to be changes. But we do have a few other elements that are included as well, Parks and Rec and economic development, some of those that just help round out the community vision. We're going to go through just a quick summary of each of these chapters. So chapter 1 looks at kind of background information and summarizes the public engagement process. Like Mike mentioned, we did start out looking at the survey that the city did in 2017, asking people about general opinions towards the city, land use, housing, those sorts of issues. So that folded into this process. We also had a couple of public meetings, including the mayor's public safety breakfast, and then an open house meeting towards the end of the plan. Throughout the project, we had a project website up and running, and we also utilized an online interactive mapping tool called Social Pinpoint for people to comment on. And then the use of committees on this project was, I think, really unique, and I'd like to commend the city for that. Working with, having the council and planning commission so integrally involved, rather than just a representative here and there. I think it worked out to have that plus citizen, representation on the committees. I think that worked out really well. So some of the key takeaways from the public engagement process, it's very important to residents to preserve the small town feel, the little bit of country image that people have of the community, also providing a variety of housing options for people through all stages of life, expanding your commercial diversity to give people more options to buy local, enhancing your parks and rec system, and then improving the aesthetics of the community. And so out of the committee meetings and out of the public engagement process, we developed 5 guiding principles to help give the vision and the framework to the overall plan. So those include preserving, again, those unique aspects, the rural feel and the unique identity of Lindon, encouraging economic development that capitalizes on your position in the regional transportation structure and just the great diversity you have within your economy. Preserving and protecting your neighborhoods, again, enhancing and improving the quality of your parks and trails, and also preserving animal rights, which were pretty important to the residents. Even though not everybody has animals, they want to make sure to protect that right for people that do. And then continuing to proactively plan for the growth that will come to the city in the future. So the second element dives into land use and community character, and most of you are pretty familiar with this map. We worked through it many times in the committee meetings, and the plan details out all of these proposed future land uses. So we have the town center that is that darker reddish brown color, on 700 North and Anderson Boulevard. And around that, you have the general commercial along 7th and then State. They also have a little bit of that out west and then down south at that south interchange. And you have the heavy industrial area in that dark purple. That's kind of buffered with the lighter, light industrial and that lighter purple color around. This plan does make a little bit of a change on the east side of Geneva by providing a little bit of a buffer between those industrial uses, giving a little bit of a buffer between the existing residential neighborhoods to the west by adding that mixed commercial use. And then you have some mixed density, high residential out west, that's that orange color. So your existing low to medium density residential areas are preserved as is. We do have 3 transit-oriented nodes along State Street that are commercial nodes that are centered around those future BRT stations. And then there are a couple of neighborhood-oriented commercial centers along Center Street in that. It's kind of a darker magenta color. I don't know if Mike can point to those, but and then we have, your existing open space and parks areas, your natural open space, some community facility uses, and that kind of rounds out. In addition, let's see, we do have a couple of flex zones. We have, or I shouldn't say zones, these are areas. Don't want to confound the two. So the flex commercial areas are out west. In the northwest, those are those light pink areas. And then you have a little bit of flex office down at the south end of the city that surrounds that general commercial area. And just to clarify for those, if anybody isn't familiar, that, you know, this future land use map is the vision, and it's completely separate from zoning. People tend to confuse those two, and we want to make sure that people understand that zoning follows the land use or gets adjusted later based on your vision and other decisions that leadership needs to take into consideration. So
Lisa, if I could talk about this map
Yeah.
just a little bit more. So in your council report, let's see, maybe I think it's online. I made a link to it. So this is that same map. Here's your current general plan map. And then this one shows all the properties that are changing on the future land use map. And so Mary and I notified every single property owner twice, once to invite them to meet with us or call and discuss the change, and then again to notify them of the public hearing. Some of these were just cleaning up properties, like a portion of the property had 2 different land use districts. And so that was cleaning that up, and so it followed property lines. You know, for example, the Thornton property, it had both residential and commercial. And so because the zoning map says that the least restrictive zoning is what takes place, or trumps everything, we just changed it to residential. And so some of these are just fixing things. This blue here is, we just identified all the public facilities. So, for example, the transfer station, the schools, the city buildings, the water irrigation holding ponds, those things. And so we wanted to make sure that all the property owners had lots of notice on this, and we heard from quite a few. A lot of them understood the changes. They thought they made sense. We heard from a couple, 1 or 2 that didn't like the change, but and I can identify those for you if you'd like. But one of them was this one on State Street right here. They sell the outdoor furniture. They're a big warehouse.
Leonard Lee's.
Yes, and so that one we've have identified being in this commercial node, and right now it's general commercial, and we put it in that commercial node. And so that doesn't mean anything's going to happen right away. What it means is we're going to study this more in the future and see how that area can be enhanced.
Can you speak more specifically to the magenta ones, the neighborhood, what did I write? Oriented commercial. I know that I see the Walker Farms as one, but then the other pinks that are right here close by.
Yeah, so we identified that because we think with the temple being built on Center Street, that's an important kind of gateway to Center Street. And so, we'd love to study that on how do we improve that area. You got some vacant property in there that was previously approved as a senior living. I think there was 100 units of senior living. And so, that with a lot more traffic on that corner, what could we do to enhance it? Could it be some restaurants, or, what kind of commercial could help make that area better?
Could you speak to why Walker Farms and this other section that's close to State Street are there when Walker Farms is the commercial farm zone? And I know that we're not speaking to zones, but why those are, and we're not, and why those are the same on this particular map. That was one of my notes.
Yeah, it was more just identifying that there's a commercial use on Center Street with Walker Farms, and they do have a small retail building there with their store and their reception center. So it's just kind of going with what's there, not expanding it in any way, but just identifying that we do have a commercial use and on Center Street, and so.
Just something that future councils will look at, and planning department will continue to look and monitor and watch that and perhaps
And I
develop
don't
that?
really see any changes, adding to Walker Farms there, it's just noting that there is a commercial use,
Thank you.
so.
Well, will you include that for Wadley's when they add their Red Barn as something similar as far as retail?
Yeah, we mostly just kept this to Center Street.
Okay, thank you.
And so that we hadn't had that thought of including it over there as well.
Thank you.
So any questions on this map?
And do we have this one, or do we have to go online to find that one?
Yeah,
one's the
you have to go on the city website.
That was my biggest concern, is what our changes were. What were Leonard Lee's?
He just wanted it to stay the same. He's like, I just want it to be commercial. And his main, if you look at that property though, he's turned it into really an industrial use. If you look at the back of the property, I need to have Jacob work with him, but there's just tons of garbage and storage, and it doesn't look very good back there. And so it's just trying to enhance that area more.
It's
Commercial,
actually,
say what it is again?
It's just a commercial transit node.
it's actually a production facility for mouse pads and things like that years ago.
A lot of years ago.
It's been kind of that type of a use for a long
They
time.
did all the templates for WordPerfect Corporation back in the
Yeah.
day.
So now it's actually a commercial to the public to come and purchase items.
Yeah.
So-
So
So not his garbage, which we don't love. Is there
They're
anything he's
unpackable.
currently doing business-wise that this would preclude him from doing?
no. So what we would look at in the future with these commercial nodes is maybe there's a little bit higher design standard in those 3 commercial nodes, and how do we maybe, the plan talks about maybe a little bit wider sidewalks in that area, so it's a little more pedestrian oriented, maybe some better landscaping, something to set those 3 areas apart along State Street. It's not saying that we're going to put residential there. It's just saying we're going to enhance the commercial appearance in those areas.
Can you put residential there?
If you change your zoning, you'd have to put a zoning ordinance in place, so we don't have that currently. And then you would have to come up with a zone for it. So similar to like,
Unlikely that it would go residential.
right.
Mike,
Now, at some point though, if you do get a BRT station there, the legislature is going to force you to put a small area plan in and do a master plan, a small area, and they're gonna force you to put in residential if you get a BRT station.
Does
Or
the
plan
BRT
for it. They're not gonna force you to put in, but they're gonna force you to plan for it.
If it's already previously developed before the BRT is planned for, before they actually put it on we put it on is different than UTA putting it on, correct?
Right, but you'd still have to add it and put a master plan in place.
Even if something already exists that's all developed out? Okay.
Uh-huh. I think it's within an 1/8 of a mile circumference of the BRT station.
And so that allows it, but anything that's there and existing is grandfathered in.
That's what I was
Yeah,
asking, yeah.
Exactly. They wouldn't have to
To
change.
retrofit.
Right, only if they sought to expand their use,
Thank you.
so.
Michael and Lisa, do you want us to comment as you go page by page, or wait till you're done with your presentation at the end?
I think we're good either way, so.
We can just stay
Okay.
on topic here if you want.
I just had a couple things on the maps, and it's kind of throughout several pages. So back to the zoning page, I think it's page 9
Let's see.
in the packet. Specifically looking at the 700 North in Geneva, you have that all zoned commercial.
And it's not, I just want to make sure, this isn't a
Not
zoning
zoning.
map. This is
Right,
just
but as far as it's a
Land use.
future, I just feel that it's really important to have, you have there a pink color for like a TOD transit site. I'm just, the light pink. So I'm just,
this
right.
one, like here? or?
So similar to on State Street, you think
So
that
the
intersection
nexus
should
of
be?
Geneva and 700,
Yeah.
we need to identify clearly that's a future track station. That's our one and only opportunity for a future track station. So could we, I just want to billboard that because I think someone glancing at that could say, oh, this is like a general commercial. I can come in and, you know,
We
do
lose
a
our
mixed
land.
use. Yes, there's,
Lose the
if
land
we
for the
lose that
chiefs.
spot, I would like to have that so clear that whoever we work with, we have, you know, good communication, that it doesn't turn into something else that misses that opportunity.
Somebody gets their hopes up, and then we pop their little bullet.
Or
So may-
someone purchases
Yes,
it with the
exactly,
intention
right.
of building, I
So
don't
maybe
know,
add
like
that as a-
offices or
As a
something.
transit/commercial node? right
Yes, and
there
I
at
think
the
we need to
intersection?
zone it and protect the zoning specifically in some way at some point, just because if it got purchased, and then we'd be in a hard place there as well, like, we need to have that called out.
Yeah, you're
And
right.
at this point, from, you know, from my meetings that I go to with MAG and the different things that have been happening in the legislature, it's starting to look like tracks is now more part of the discussion than maybe even BRT at this point. So I think we need to have some preservation
Along the railroad
of their,
tracks.
to be certain we don't miss that opportunity, so. And, yeah, in regards to BRT, right now, it would have to come up from the BRT infrastructure that's already in Orem, and Orem City is not amenable to having it come up State Street. They're at this current time. So BRT is looking a little less like an option that will be coming sooner than later. I've talked with some of the UTA about maybe putting us in their plans for, you know, BRT still to connect us from Utah County Boulevard, you know, from the north, potentially to have us tie in for our corridor there.
Some sort of a spur that
It
comes back.
may not happen on State Street. There's a lot of businesses that find BRT, you can't do the left-hand turns to cross and access businesses, and it chews up a lot of, you know, that dedicated lane. So there's some that are very for it, some that are not, so it's a little up in the air if it's going to be funded and happen in the near future. But it's great to have it identified and planned for. And so I just like to make sure we equally identify and plan for the tracks station. And then we had chatted about the town center naming,
Yes.
and is that something you're going to bring up later, or?
I was at the end, but
Okay,
we can bring
perfect.
up.
We don't have to do that now. I don't want to derail your presentation. So my only other comment is on all the slides, like page, 9 through 14, I see vineyard every
Thank you.
single page.
Thank you, Mayor.
And sometimes there's Orem, but
Except for a
I'm
little on the
wondering,
side.
could we superimpose like Lindon in some way and maybe delete some of the vineyards? I'm great with us orienting our southern sister cities by,
Just make Vineyard small.
Vineyard
Really
was on
small.
like 7 pages and no identification of
I had the
Lindon.
same notation.
Okay, great, we're on the same
Yeah.
page. Anyway,
Says it
thank
on the
you.
side of the page, but it
I
doesn't.
didn't mean to, I was going to save these for the end, but since you invited us to comment while we're here, appreciate that. Anything else from council before we move on?
Okay.
Thank you.
One other thing I was going to say about those nodes on State Street, they also follow where the major street lights are on State Street. So, that's why we figured they were important too, to enhance those corners mainly. So,
Those could include things like plazas or, kind of enhanced urban design elements, site furnishings, artwork, all kinds of fun things could happen at those locations.
Wonderful.
If it does come. But you're right, Mayor, that we do note that other transit note on some of the other maps, but not on the future land use map, so we can make that change. And the plan includes some representative images of these different types of uses, so you can get a sense of either existing uses that convey that need or what future uses might look like. So this is the placemaking concept which overlays that. And as you can see, this is one of those maps that we do have that that fourth transit node up there along Geneva and 7th. So we have the town center, those three major nodes, the four major nodes with that additional one. The civic center in the location where we're at, kind of continuing the tradition that you're building here. This map also shows some potential gateway areas where you can enhance and improve the identity of the city. You can, let people know when they've arrived at Lindon, and this could be through enhanced landscaping. Again, it could be through artwork. There are some really fun ways to introduce, aside from just putting a little plaque up that says you're coming into Linden.
In the old days, it used to be a white vinyl fence.
The white fencing,
got away-
exactly.
went away from.
That's one way that you definitely know you're here, so. But this map also summarizes some of the other enhancements. It overlays the major trail network connecting your parks and open space and some of these transit and transportation options. It also shows some street corridor enhancement areas, like Center and some of those other ones that have potential in the future to just again, enhance the aesthetics and the imagery and kind of the branding of Linden. And there is some sample images as well in here showing you what some of those might look like. Some of the corridor treatments along State Street, Geneva, 200 South, 400 East. Some examples of what some of those gateways could look like, and also what some of these buffers and transitions look like. Because in our committee meetings we talked about maybe a little bit of buffering along Geneva. If you have some uses that change on there, and it might make sense to add some simple buffering for some of those uses and continue those heavy industrial and light industrial uses, but maybe improve the aesthetics of that corridor a little bit. So each of these major elements wraps up with a list of goals and some kind of recommended policies and implementation measures to help realize the vision. So the major goals for the land use chapter, again, are creating this realistic vision to help guide your future decision-making, preserving that small town feeling, making sure that the city is distinct and identifiable from your surrounding municipalities, creating places for the community to gather, ensuring that your land uses are compatible and that you have adequate buffers, and then just ensuring that all of your land uses match the guiding principles and the vision of the community. The transportation and circulation element looks at your roadway network as well as some of your alternative transportation elements. This map summarizes your street master plan. This shows, all of the solid lines show your existing road network, which is pretty much built out. You do have a few minor connections still left that are shown in dashed lines. You've got the connector out west as a potential roadway in the future, but generally built out. The additional map in this chapter looks at your alternative transportation, and this is looking at a lot of those major transit routes that are, what you have existing and then what is proposed, including the light rail, the potential BRT, the stops that go along with that. And then this map also overlays your existing trail network. So what you have as far as shared use paths, what you have for bike lanes. We didn't include the future on these because you have a couple of plans that address those, and those need to be reconciled. So that sorting and consolidating will happen in another process that can give that the attention that it needs. So wrapping up your transportation chapter, some of the goals include developing opportunities that are supported by major transportation routes. So just making sure your land use and circulation are coordinated, establishing your multimodal network, so making sure roads and trails and transit all make sense, making sure that your transportation solutions align with your character of the community, and that roadways also contribute to the design and appearance of the community. So enhancing those roadways where it's appropriate, ensuring that your roadways meet safety requirements and the community needs to get around, and then just ensuring that they're adequately funded. Any questions on the transportation? Okay. So a moderate income housing plan, you guys already touched a little bit on that this evening with one of your other items on the agenda. So Mike put together the moderate income housing plan in the fall. That was accepted by the state. And this plan simply incorporates what he produced into this document. So you have already been through this in detail through that process and also through your work on the committee. And so the housing vision expressed in this element is to encourage a range of quality housing types and opportunities for individuals and families through all stages of life and incomes while continuing to maintain the city's unique rural character. So we've touched on a lot of these issues already, and that vision really captures those items of importance to the community. And as Mike mentioned, you have 5 strategies that the city has selected. The state requires at least 3, but you get a little bit of transportation incentive to select a few additional strategies. So those include allowing or reducing regulations related to internal or detached accessory dwelling units, eliminating impact fees for ADUs that are not internal accessory dwelling units, utilizing a moderate income housing set-aside from an RDA, Community Development or Renewal Agency to subsidize moderate income housing, reduce, waive, or eliminate impact fees related to moderate income housing, and then implementing zoning incentives for moderate income housing units in new developments.
I have a question maybe for the public that's listening or watching. I know I sat in on all of these meetings, and one thing we discussed was definitely trying to maintain the little bit of country in Lindon. However, there was a overall acknowledgement that, half-acre lots are no more feasible in the city because of cost and a number of reasons. So I'd be interested to know, just in a nutshell, how we intend on keeping in future development, how we intend on emphasizing a little bit of country and the rural nature of Lindon. I know that was something that was discussed at length, and it creates a little bit of a dilemma because we just really don't have the opportunity. People won't have animal rights because of their size of their lots and so forth, and potential future development. So, if that's a fair question, maybe we just address that for just a moment.
I love that question because that is something that comes up all the time.
Yeah.
Is how do we keep our motto? And I can speak for myself. I mean, I think what was discussed in those meetings that was the spirit is, what is the spirit of Little Bit of Country, right? It doesn't mean that we in perpetuity have animal rights on every single lot, but we're going to have in the variety of housing that we're looking to implement and create in the community, we're going to always have those traditional areas and locations where it's going to be preserved. And then also a little bit of country is about a feeling, about a neighborliness, about a connectedness, about the open space. So if we do allow for smaller lots, what are we doing to create aesthetically beautiful gathering places, trails, places for people to get outside and experience with nature, even if they're in maybe a little more of an urban setting. So for me, that's one of the ways that we can address what Little Bit of Country means to keep that unique flavor here. And so this is a public hearing, and I see a hand up there.
I know.
Yes,
I just don't want to
great.
come up there.
Yes.
So I had the same question, especially last council when Wadley Farm, what's his name?
Allen College.
College, Dr. College.
And that was an epiphany for me as he talked about what they're doing at Wadley Farms, and I think it's just important. Well, I mean, that's going to have to be the way that we do it going forward, right? Those open spaces, still maintain that without the animal rights on any property, without the half-acre. I don't know how else to do it.
Yeah, well, and that was my sense too. I think that's what I was driving at. I think the discussion centered around that very thing is open space, trails, recreational opportunities, preserving what we currently have and even enhancing that if that's possible. So again, I was not trying to play devil's advocate. I just think that was not necessarily readily obvious. But I think that was discussed at length, and I think there was some good discussion on it. So,
Do you feel that this document needs further explanation, that Little Bit of Country doesn't mean we're going to stay an agrarian throughout the whole city, but you think it's giving the wrong impression? What's the
I don't know that it's
thought
giving the
behind that?
wrong impression so much as maybe there could be a preamble or something, maybe a little bit of an explanation saying that we recognize the economic constraints, for animal rights or whatever. But, make no mistake about it, we're keen on preserving what we already have and making any future development user-friendly, open space friendly, outdoor friendly, if you will, so.
I see our motto of Little Bit of Country as being one of those characteristics that distinguishes who Lindon is, regardless of whether you have animals on your property or have rights to animals on your property. I think maintaining those rights that are already in existence and wherever they might be allowed to be still out there is an important characteristic for Lindon City to continue with. I see in highly urban places where they tried to make community gardens on vacant lots. And so there are people who do aspire to have some sort of agrarian feel, even in the most urban of settings and the most dense of populations across our country. And we are very unique in that, and we are very, I guess, it's a special place, and we need to hold that really close and dear to ourselves. I know the first 2 times I ran for office, in 11 and 15, that question came up. Should we continue with our motto and our, as a question for the candidates? And I will always be here, I will always be there, making sure that we hold dear to that particular one, and to help educate those who are coming to our community who benefit from our way of thinking, those who do hold it dear, because it will enhance their lives regardless of how, if they just have a guinea pig in their townhome.
Well, I think.
So, I mean, that we say this is a good thing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's whether it's at a park setting or in their townhome, or that they know that they've got neighbors up the street that have a half acre or a larger lot. That adds to their quality of life, and that's why people come here, or they will come here.
Well, I think you hit up on a keen point, is that of educating, because it's hard to generalize. I mean, obviously, I haven't talked to every resident of Lindon, but the ones a lot of them, even question a little bit of country. I mean, what do you mean a little bit of country? We don't have it hardly, farms or anything like that. And I think you're right. It's the education of, the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish, and doing everything that we can to maintain that feel within existing constraints of land sizes, parcels, or whatever it might be, or future developments. We know that there's going to be future developments. There has to be, especially if we do the 7th North Corridor and all of that. So, again, I think it's just important, the education component of it, because not everybody, again, hard to generalize, but I don't think everybody sees and understands that concept of a little bit of country.
They might not understand it, but they definitely benefit from it,
Oh,
just
sure.
even in a tertiary setting.
But
So
if you don't know you're benefiting from it,
I'll let them go to Ormond and they'll fill it, or Vineyard and they'll fill it, or whatever, go to wherever. Maybe not in Levan, but, so.
One more comment, if I can. So
Exactly,
when we
that's
first started on the planning group there, I brought this up because to me, it didn't seem like we still were. I mean, that was a little bit of country. Is that still who we are? And it's nice to get the clarification that, yes, that's what people do want. We may not know exactly what that means, but, and then that discussion last time, open spaces, et cetera. But I think it begs a follow-up question that's important, right? This is provided the clarification, but for city councils and from there going forward, what differentiates us from Orem, from Vineyard? Because everybody's talking about open spaces and everybody has trails, and our Murdoch Trail goes through everybody. What are we doing different so that we really are a little bit of country?
again, that's that education component, I think. I think that's got to be paramount. Anyway.
And I just want to go back to our guiding principle here is where, right at the beginning of the general plan, we talk about how, the small town atmosphere, the little bit of country, that's very important for Lindon residents. We heard that over and over again, but we also heard that There's a desire to minimize the impacts of growth while also strengthening the community identity through formation of special destinations, through gathering places, the need to maintain a strong economic base. And so I think through this plan, you'll see areas where, talks a lot about sense of place. So knowing when you arrive into Lindon, because it is something special, enhancing some of these corridors like 2nd South or State Street or 400 North, and knowing that you are in a special place here. And so through the plan, you'll see objectives on how to do that. So
I think that's great.
When Ben and I were young and we went to Orem High School, you knew where Lindon was because it was way out there, wasn't it, back in the day? It's not so way out there anymore.
Could I ask just a couple of questions? Okay, this is gonna be map 3, we have our flex commercial, and I have a hard time seeing that, where it is on this actual map. And to define what flex commercial would lead somebody to believe. And my underlying question is gonna be, what areas are we saying by this document or implying that we want more residential, more density?
we're not saying.
I'm not seeing that, but.
Yes, that
Is flex commercial residential included as
not.
part of it?
your flex commercial is out here where Mark Weldon has done a lot of development. And so we tried to describe that the best, because it's office buildings and it's office warehouses. And so we're trying to come up with the best name for that. So that's this area, right out here on 600 North and PG Interchange. So we're trying to come up with a name that kind of captured both office, retail, and office warehouse uses.
Okay, thank you. And one other thing I will point out, and this will, I don't, hope it doesn't sound ticky, but, oh, gee. It just disappeared on me. Can you scroll up a little bit, or to see the pictures that go with this?
Oh, let's see. Is it any of these?
No, it may have been higher. My point will be, on our corridors that are less than 8 feet long, that we're showing in pictures here, that we have landscaping in, where we've just passed an ordinance of water conservation, where we're saying you can't have that.
Oh, so matching our pictures to what we actually allow or want.
And those for residential,
It's more like these here.
Yeah, so like in here,
We don't want that.
we just approved saying, hey, don't do that. And there's another one as you go higher. And then I know we've talked a little bit about, for the temple things, we gotta figure out how we want to show that on Center Street. And I think you have to go up a couple of, or push it all down.
There was a little
replacing
star.
some of those lush green trees with xeriscaping.
Well, the trees we're okay with, but not the grass that goes in it. And maybe you bounce through it, and you can go to 10, 9.
We still want trees.
This one.
Oh,
Jeff.
I mean, I love the picture, love to look at it, but it's a,
That's a low water
That's a water-wise
as
landscape.
long as it's a low water use, we want that to be depicted in our pictures.
Yeah, that one is low water plant material, so we can make sure to swap out any of those that show turf.
And the whole thing disappeared off my. But just that as a general rule,
okay.
that we comply with what we've agreed to do with Central Utah Water.
Yeah.
So we're on number 5.
An interesting data point that I came across when we talk about Little Bit of Country. Population per square mile in Lindon is about 1,200. Population per square mile in Orem is about 5,250. So 5,000 over 5,000 people per square mile. Vineyard is currently about 3,500 per square mile, but their vision, they will be probably 7,000, 8,000, maybe even more when they finish out their build-out per square mile. So there's an answer for you on a little bit of country.
There were
On the
like,
density of overall
there were just
people.
a few
per square
hundred
mile.
people.
So,
And I think one other way that you are starting to tackle some of the housing needs, but keep your community identity is through your ADUs. And, you know, you've embraced that for
Right.
years, but
And
that
then
really
having
helps.
strategic near transit corridors where it strategically makes sense as well, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a point out of nowhere, but since we're talking about housing, as I'm preparing the housing report, I thought it was interesting, in the last 2.5 years, we've approved 42 ADUs. Just, we usually have averaged,
few.
you know,
We had
seven
like
to seven.
when I first came on. and
Yeah,
12.
we'd average about 7 a year, and just in the last year, we've approved 21. So,
One of them was mine.
Okay, any other questions on housing?
so like Lisa said, we didn't change anything in this section. She just made it look nicer than I had it, so.
Okay, so Chapter 5 looks at economic development and resiliency in the community. Some of the major recommendations from the committees included diversifying commercial options along State Street. Again, you know, with that being such a major commercial corridor, and then those potential transit routes coming along there as well, that would make sense. Looking at the quality of businesses that are being attracted to the community, potentially attracting an experiential type of business to the community. Continuing to promote home occupation businesses and to support sales tax generating businesses within the community. Prioritizing 700 North for economic development, while also ensuring that it becomes an icon and, you know, a key gathering place for the community. And also just making sure that you're utilizing a lot of the existing recent studies that you've already done. You have a lot of extensive studies to form a basis for your future decision-making. Some of the future development opportunities, key development areas in the community include 700 North, the Canopy Business Park, and State Street. There are also some major, or a couple of small redevelopment opportunities in the future down the road, including 200 South and Geneva Road on the west side. Again, those might be very long-term. So looking at your major goals in the economic development chapter, again, strategically planning for business development and attraction, creating a resilient economic development strategies, and planning for a diversified tax base, and increasing economic opportunities for residents. Any additional thoughts on that element? Pretty straightforward.
Usually quiet.
So Parks and Rec, this was another element that you have a lot of existing, you know, planning work that's already gone into this. So this chapter integrated your two key studies, the Parks and Rec master plan that was completed in 2020, and then your bike ped plan, which was completed in 2015. And as I mentioned, there's a little bit of reconciliation that needs to happen among some of the trail aspects of these planning efforts. But you have a lot of good information to start with and move forward with some consolidated ideas. So those plans already include your Parks and Trails vision. The bike ped plan includes a bicycle network and also a pedestrian network, and includes some recommended phasing for that. This element does also summarize the achievements with the park tax, as you mentioned, that will be coming up in November. So definitely pays homage to all the work that's already been done, and, you know, gives you, those two studies give you some direction in the future, you know, maybe how to use some of those funds. So the goals coming out of that process, you know, those previous planning efforts and throughout this public engagement process include utilizing an inclusive approach to your Parks and Rec planning, and ensuring that your open space and your Parks and Rec system supports improved health and well-being for residents of all abilities, providing unique park facility, recreation, trail, and open space opportunities, incorporating those previous planning studies and implementing the goals and recommendations that are already included in those, and then ensuring the prudent use of community resources in realizing your Parks and Rec vision.
I just have a quick question. One comment that I made in one of the sessions was we're putting here, we're referencing a lot of our other really good studies, like our moderate income housing plan and this Park and Recs master plan. Will we have active HTML links to open those documents for someone perusing this?
Yeah,
Okay,
those are
wonderful.
Yeah, those are in there.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the next element looks at environment and sustainability. So this chapter documents some of the environmental conditions that you need to consider as you move forward with development. It documents your topography, some of the seismic conditions in the community, and some of the water and hydrological conditions, some of these natural resources and potential hazards. And then the goal of this chapter is to protect those natural resources and help preserve the quality of life for residents, visitors, and wildlife, mitigating these natural hazards to protect life and property, and then ensuring that you are sustainable and resilient as you move forward and continue to grow and evolve. So just being thoughtful and mindful about these considerations with everything else you have to look at with your development proposals and growth. The eighth element is the water use and preservation element, and as I mentioned, this is a new element required by the state of Utah. So this is another one of, kind of exploring what the state is anticipating, what might be helpful for the city as you look forward. This chapter summarizes your existing water conservation strategies and what you're planning to do in the future. This graphic summarizes your existing water use, and the green bars show your existing gallons per capita per day and what that would be between 2020 and 2050 if you continued on your current water use. And it goes from like 5.7 millions per capita per day to 6.5 million gallons per capita per day by 2020. The population is shown, your projected population growth is shown in the little line above, so you can see how the population is projected to grow by a little over 1,000 in that time period. And then the tan bar shows the hope, what you're aiming for with your water conservation measures and what you might actually drop to. So going from, 5.7 million gallons per capita per day to actually less than you're using today with all of that additional population. So it could.
Projecting for 2050 to
2050.
be like, to be almost 2 million less. I mean, what, 1.9, I think I estimated it at.
Yeah.
Of the difference between actual or anticipated would be less, almost by 2 million.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the goal, and that's, the state has goals, and they've set goals for different regions within the, throughout the state, and those projections kind of show what you want to be targeting. So you're helping work with, neighboring communities and the state to reduce your water demand, and also implementing your own water conservation measures that you have planned. So this list summarizes some of the current water conservation measures that you're already implementing, including your secondary water meters, which those have those been finished?
Yeah.
They're done, great, congratulations. So one of those important measures to implement, and other strategies include, educating residents on the rebates that are available. There are a lot of things you can do to get people thinking about water use. So the plan includes a list of additional strategies, and some of these might be doubling down on efforts that you're already implementing, providing a little more effort or funding to those, but also some new measures as well. So a lot of nice ideas and recommendations in that element. So the overall goals of this element include providing a clear and realistic vision for your existing and future water resources, rights, and systems, adopting water use targets that meet local needs while reducing unnecessary consumption, supporting concepts and ideas in your existing Lindon Water Conservation Plan, which needs to be updated every 5 years. So 2024, you'll be taking a look at that again. And then again, supporting that collaborative regional water use and preservation, all those strategies and goals in the state and in the area.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, would you like to discuss?
No, go ahead, I think it's coming up. Here.
Okay. Okay. The plan wraps up with the action and implementation plan. And this chapter takes some key recommended projects to help realize the vision that'll kind of get a jump start on some of these ideas and the vision in the plan. And then it applies a little bit of a scoring criteria to help you prioritize. And this is, so it helps prioritize projects that may be lower cost, higher impact, and easier to implement. That doesn't mean that that's the order you have to do them in. We're just trying to say for, to pick that low-hanging fruit, if you want to tackle some of those easier to tackle items that are a little more affordable, you might want to, go for some of these higher priority items. And so what the plan does is recommend some of those types of items within the next 0 to 5 years, and then so on. It applies a time frame based on other elements. And there are 3 types of projects. They're broken down by planning and design, programming and monitoring, or design and construction. And then each project or action item has a little icon that summarizes which element of the plan it will help you achieve, and some of them have multiples. So, some of these action items may actually address some of the goals in multiple elements of the general plan. So there's some overlap with some of these.
Thank you, Lisa. I do have okay, I think we did pass the page I was looking at. 44, just had a quick question there. You have the word stringent and for the water.
Yeah.
More stringent rate structure just gives a little bit of, puts, I think, people on the defensive potential a little bit, like it sounds like penalizing.
Mm-hmm.
Could we maybe phrase that a little more, I don't know, like a measured rate structure, or is there another word we could use there rather than stringent?
Or incentivized or something like that, yeah. Something.
Perhaps, because I think the way we're approaching it is not looking to approach it too heavy-handed on our rate structure. We're looking to now collect data and kind of equalize what's been happening with culinary versus irrigation, and then we're going to look at land use parcels and their usage. And so we're trying to be a data approach or a measured approach, not probably a stringent approach.
Lisa's word of, what did you say, incentivized?
Incentivized.
Might go over better than measured, because measured, everyone's so many.
Then there's,
freaking
they
out
could
over
think,
it.
yes.
But
Okay,
incentivized
thank you.
would be
That's
more
what I wanted
important.
to just see if we could come up with a better descriptive word.
Yeah, and we can talk about what's appropriate for that.
And just so you're aware, the planning commission, they, gave a positive recommendation with the condition that the water conservation plan does not recommend charging for secondary water. And so,
I want to open that
however,
Pandora box.
however, your 2019 water conservation plan does talk about that at some future point. And so,
It's in the future. We need to prepare.
so we are taking that out, but we're referring to the 2019 adopted water conservation plan.
I'm just bringing it up as a point of discussion. I'm not, so I'm just curious what the thoughts are on that.
I think stringent is, it's off-putting for many people. And so that you would get a resident that would come and say, blah, 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 blah. And we've had that happen before. And I think there's a way
To educate.
to educate. And I agree with Lincoln that measured makes people go, whatever, they don't take action. And so incentivize is something that, for those who will take that, I think that's a great option.
There will be, charging of rates is going to change. That is something that's going to be happening. So
We always do that.
it's okay to communicate that.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, we'll look at that.
thank you.
Since we're kind of looking at pages, could we go to page 7, which was towards the beginning? And number 2, I think if we add the word "it provides," that advantages that it provides would be helpful. And then on number 4, at the end in the bold, there's some redundancy there, Parks and Recs and animal rights.
Oh, you're right. Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks for catching up.
thank you.
It's always great to have editors and additional eyes.
You always have to have extra eyes. I didn't find any others, but doesn't mean that they're not there.
So if there are any other general questions, or Mike, if you wanted to talk about some of the additional tweaks or adjustments?
Yes, let me, so, because we are close to, well, we're pretty much maxed out on our budget for this, so we didn't want to, as we're continuing to review it, Lisa didn't have a chance, or we didn't have the budget for updating the whole plan before it got to you between Planning Commission and City Council as we're continuing to edit this. So we've added some different things here, trying to list of what we're still updating as part of this plan. So you're aware of that. We're hoping that, you know, that this, when it is adopted, then Lisa will put the final plan all together with all of these changes for us. And so just a few edits up here that, you know, there's some updates to the transportation map that you know, need to be added. You know, parks and trails, there's the percentage of park tax, that was, the decimal point was in the wrong area. Noah had still a few comments on updating the water use and preservation section. And so there's some updates like that, so. And we would add yours this evening to this list as well. Yes, thank you. And so, meant for me to talk about the town center. As we've met with developers and things, sometimes they're like, well, are you moving your city hall down there to the town center? And, you know, they want to know what we're going to be bringing as part of facilities. And so one thing we've talked about is changing that, and this name is fluid. You know, you can change it if you want, but just maybe calling it the Lindon Commercial Center instead of Town Center.
We've had a few residents even ask if we're moving our city center out on 7 up north. I think the phrase town center is not indicative of what we're trying to do out there.
The Linden Gathering Center.
Commercial, that sounds so.
I know.
that's
Cold.
something.
Yeah, there you go. I like that.
Well, Linden,
Or
it's called the zone is Linden Village, downtown, commercial. I mean, there's a variety of words we
I like
could.
Linden Village myself.
my only thing about village
What does that mean?
is that
Housing?
connotate some housing.
Yes.
So I just,
So downtown, Linden, commercial downtown, I don't know. What are some words? Let's just brainstorm what y'all think feels good.
Center would connote probably city center.
Well, this is city center here.
No, I know, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. If we
but-
said Linden Center, then
Downtown.
commercial activity center, commercial, yeah. And if you'd like, I can email that out and you can send me some comments if you want to think about that.
Kind of going
right now, trying to come up with something.
Yeah.
kind of off that same vein, I know it's been discussed before, and I've talked about it here in this meeting, but the commercial use along Center Street, and you spoke specifically about the temple coming in it. I know we've talked about in other meetings, some of the gathering meetings with citizens, about having commercial along Center Street and being that's in my general neighborhood. I just don't know how that goes over well as far as people traveling there to then partake of whatever, sandwiches, sundaes, whatever, when there's so many other institutions that are just right down on State Street versus, I don't know, there are, members in the community that are in this room here that kind of live in that general area as well. I don't know if Lyle has any feelings about that, but I just know that people I've talked to, perhaps that's something that's a little off-putting of bringing commercial of any kind of beyond what's already there along Center Street. I don't know if there's other people who feel that
This
same way.
really doesn't expand that except for.
I just
that
know that we've
first.
talked about it in the past, so I'm
Yeah.
just a little leery about, putting
We're-
some sort of vague even definitions upon land use
Yeah.
in that area that's, could
And-
potentially come in.
And I'm surprised they're not here this evening. They called us, said they were going to be here, but the Kings,
Okay,
they live on this
Yep, I
residential
know.
lot right here.
Jeremy and Amy.
Yeah, and they were like, we love this idea. They
Yeah.
called Mary and they said, we really like this commercial.
He's got a developer heart.
Yeah, so that was, we're just trying to,
Boutique
Yeah, I know.
type
Yeah.
I've known them since she was a little girl.
so, yeah, the intent of this is just look at Center Street and Main Street, that little node right there, and then identify what,
I guess it's just the
Walker
closer you get
Farms.
to the temple that bothers, it concerns me. Bothers too strong a word. Concerns me.
mhm.
I'm parsing things here, but.
So I don't know if you want that off, or if you
I'm
want
just,
to.
I guess, speaking here to the council as well. It's just that's putting my thoughts out there.
I feel like there's space for a little bit of country in that country store on that center street, maintained it throughout the city. Just putting my thoughts on it.
Out there where there already is one on,
in the historic home.
what, 500 East? Not additional ones? Or do you feel like there's,
Well, when it was first brought up in the planning, what do we call it?
Commission.
The
General Plan Committee.
committees?
I wasn't a fan of it, but the vision as it kind of got described more, and we're looking for way down the road, it's like, okay, but I could get on board with something that's way down the road as we evolve. Right? And that little country store that we currently have there.
At Walker's?
Seeing something more like that, okay, that could make sense.
Well, along State Street, though, you've got a lot of buildings, businesses, buildings right now that are terribly antiquated, that are
Needing some redevelopment, though.
certainly not the highest and best use for that property. And I think having a goal of commercial along there, I mean, we could probably control what commercial came in there, but certainly I see great opportunities as those little dilapidated places along State Street that have been there forever and a day become available, become vacant, so.
And as to the ones that are by the Kings, the Kings are just one property line away from being in the commercial or whatever the district is. And I think that we could do something lovely in that particular area. It's just the further east that we go on Center Street is where my concerns go.
Yeah.
Mine would be as well for now, and.
Yeah, we don't go too far, but.
We've got lots of opportunities along State Street,
That's
kind of like
8 feet
what,
walls are for.
Yeah.
that's kind of like what Mike was just saying.
So at this point, with it just identifying what's already there, but not creating any new, are we good? Are you feeling okay with that?
I am.
All right. Well, that's been a wonderful, wonderful presentation. Thank you so much to Landmark Design. And so really quickly, this is a public hearing. So any further comment from the public? Okay, come on up,
Yes, we like that, Lincoln.
Mr. Link.
Public hearings, I've decided, as long as they let me get away with just yelling out a comment, then it's.
We like you better at the microphone, Lincoln.
Lincoln Jacobs, 141 South, 900 East. I was on the General Planning Committee with Bruce Carpenter. It's been 20-plus years ago. And as I compared the two of these, wow, what a huge difference. When Mayor Lundberg invited me, it's like, oh, okay, I'll go do that again. And this, Lisa, and Landmark Design, and however this came to be. Back then, we were a much smaller town, whether this was the mayor, the city council, Mike, Adam, whomever. This was a really cool experience. I feel bad that I feel like toward the end, I had some personal conflicts. My heart was still there, and I missed being a part of those. But kudos to everybody that made this happen and for letting me play along as well. Lisa, you made a comment about good feedback from the citizens and all the efforts that were made to get that good feedback. Do you feel like they were responsive? You do this for a lot of different cities. How did you feel Lindon's response was compared to other cities? did the citizens care? I'm curious, you know, when we do this down the road, if this is valuable information to have. Were these efforts successful, do you think, in connecting with them? And Mike, you can weigh in on that too, or city council, you were there, one of the presentations you said you made somewhere, and there was feedback on that?
I can start if you like. So when we did our public open house in April, I was totally expecting 10 people to show up. And we offered pool passes, and I'd recommend any future meeting you offer pool passes, because we had almost 100 people show up. And so it was myself, Mary, and Lisa. We were a little overwhelmed with how many people showed up, but it was great. We received a lot of feedback that night. A lot of people wrote comments down on the big sheet we had there. And but for me, I was totally impressed that Lindon really came out. That, you know, my 16 years of experience, I was like, oh yeah, it's the same 10 people will show up. But when we had 100, it was awesome.
First responders breakfast, as people came into breakfast, Landmark Design did a great job, and staff just having things up and engaging with people and chatting with them, and they were stopping and talking, and we had a good turnout there as well.
So how did you feel Lindon responded compared to other cities you guys have done this with?
I think it was a good response. I mean, sometimes you may have many times that, but that's typically if you're proposing something extremely controversial. And I don't think you are. I think you were trying to really express the interests and the desires that the community has communicated to you. And so that's why I don't think, the room isn't packed here tonight with people, that are really concerned about what this plan is proposing.
We always shoot to be number one, as you can see from earlier conversations.
What do you mean, shoot? We are. But one good takeaway is pool passes for other things that we want to get the city involved in.
For the #1 outdoor facility in the state of Utah.
How often, when you went to those public events, did you feel that public opinion changed from what the planning committee had kind of put in place? Does my question make sense?
Congruency.
I think people
some
were-
kind? You looking for congruency, possibly?
Yeah, I mean, did we have a good group of the committee? And this time,
Did it
Lisa made the
reflect
comment
well?
that the council was really involved and the planning commission was really involved. Was that effort appropriate? Once we got out to the citizens, how much did that public opinion sway where we had kind of started down? You know? Do you have a
I
sense?
think people were pretty responsive. I heard over and over, people just really appreciative that we had an education opportunity for them to come and just learn what we were doing. You had a few people that, were like, I remember one gentleman, I said, those 3 nodes on State Street, maybe we'll have a higher design standard. And he's like, well, that's gonna prohibit economic development, and you add a few comments like that. But, for the most part, I had people over and over tell me just how glad they were to come be educated and learn what's going on in the city.
Well, my recollection is early on, when we got a lot of citizen input, what was the event we had over at the community center where people could write on the white, what do you call those?
Whiteboard.
Well, not whiteboard.
Flip chart.
Flip chart, yeah,
charts.
yeah. They wrote their ideas, what they liked. I think a lot of what,
Christmas tree lighting event.
Well,
maybe.
that was for our park master
That was
plan,
for the
wasn't it?
parks one, yeah.
but we had similar things like that, where
Yeah.
people had the opportunity to weigh in. I guess my point being,
Engaging.
a lot of what went into this, as I recollect, were recommendations. I mean, it was hard to say that 100 people represent the entire city, but they certainly
Better than the 7 people
No,
from back with,
agreed. That's
and
what I'm
I'm not
saying.
mocking Bruce, right back then.
Well, they probably represent their neighbors and their neighborhoods and so forth. So I feel like a lot of what we have in here was citizen-directed input.
Well, and we also made sure that the body of the committee represented every zone of the city. So
Area, that's
I looked
true.
at the city as 4 zones. We had east, we had, central, east, central, west, and west, west. So we made sure we had 3 to 4 individuals from each specific kind of district or zone of the community, so they could speak to their perspective of where they're at and how things were shaping. shaping up, so.
At the mayor's breakfast, we had this board up right here, and people could put dots on what they liked. And I thought it was interesting, this one had a lot of red on it, that having a mixed-use residential focus. And people thought, oh, you know, they were all against it. And I said, well, I asked them the question, well, what if it went on the intersection of 700 North and Anderson Boulevard, where you're trying to create a special place? And they're like, oh, I'm okay with it right there. You know, but they thought that we were putting
No
this in their
NIMBY.
neighborhood or something, or, you know, and so, so yeah, that was good to learn that, you know, if it was make sure things are in the right location.
That's what this is about.
So, to me, it seems like, wow, this was really successful. Wow, this was really cool. And sitting here tonight, hearing the presentation is like, this is awesome, right? In a business organization, you want to have a vision. And it's like, that's what we have here with pictures and graphs and everything. And this is really cool. There's a lot of really good content in there. As you step back, and this might not be the right place, right? But kind of a retrospective, what could we have done that would have even been that much better? Any thoughts? And maybe that's just for an added meeting later on.
From my perspective, I think anytime you can integrate a current statistically valid survey, that's very helpful, because we had the 2017 survey, but, you know, as you're entering, whenever you get around to this process next, try to make sure you fund that as part of the process, because that's really key at getting that geographically representative and representative of the demographics of your community, and it's current, and you can ask all those, you know, fine questions that you like to tease out as part of the process. So that would be my recommendation.
Great.
I do feel like that Landmark and staff did an exceptional job of boiling down a lot of divergent bits of information and requests and desires and so forth into something that's pretty darn concise and I think meets the needs of the community. I've been impressed. I think it was money well spent. So just my personal opinion, but.
I know everybody wants to go home and I'm going to shut up, but I just have one more comment. So the important takeaway, I feel, one of the important takeaways from this is we now have this vision that's had a really good comprehensive input. And it's a great vision, and it meets legislation, it meets the will of the people. Education is super important. Getting this out is super important. Super important that our city council knows this plan well, that this is our marching orders. I mean, all the little decisions we make here, right, we just want them to fit in this long-term vision. And we have 3 of you that are going to be bidding us adieu. And you can take this forward in your lives as you're meeting with citizens, but we have 3 more that are coming in. So when we do the questions, maybe one of the questions, right, when everybody comes up here and that's meet the candidates, one of the questions could be, have you read the general plan and do you have any feedback or thoughts regarding that? Not that I care what they say or what we say at that moment, but they're going to read it really well. So whether they win or lose, they're all going to read it really well, and we'll be able to take it forward no matter what happens.
You're going to be a ringer. You know all this.
Thank you.
It's the city, it's the people out there that vote. Anyway, thank you again, Lisa, and everybody, Adam, City Council, Mayor, Mike. That was a great thing.
Thank you for serving on the committee and being here. And again, please let Landmark Design, this is a beautiful document. It's appealing. It puts the information together so well. We really appreciate your hard work and teamwork with Mike and his team. So I think I've been taking some notes, just wanted to make sure you have this list here of the remaining updates that you're going to address. Just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So we talked about on page 9 on the zoning colors, having the TOD as a future land use in its own color. Right now it's orange for commercial. And then there were about 20 pages that say vineyard. So just kind of, it's
Make
okay
them
to be, we
very
love our
tiny.
sister city vineyard, but it started to look like branding for vineyard a little bit. But so, and if you have a way to superimpose a gradated, Lindon over on some of those pages, just to keep the frame of reference of where we're at in our community. And then there was a comment on page 16 by Van to just swap that picture that shows turf in the island. And then page 44, find a little bit better phrasing for the water stringent comment. And then anything else, council? Are we missing anything
Just
before
those
we?
things on page 7,
Yeah, those
Page 7, the
edits.
little
little typos,
typo.
just need to be reworked.
Well, and then just a reminder too, we don't necessarily need to put it in this report, but reminder, you're gonna send everybody, you get their consensus on what a name.
Right, that's on the list here.
Yeah, is that on?
He's got it already, so great. Anything else, council? Okay, any other questions, comments? All right, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Oh, Daryl, go ahead. No, Daryl's got it.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Magalby, seconded by Councilmember Vanchery. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have closed the public hearing. Bringing it back to you, council, then. Any further discussion needed?
I have none.
Thoughts?
We need a motion, I'll make that.
Let's take a motion, yes.
I move to approve ordinance 23-9-0 as presented with the changes that are so noted.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Powell.
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Councilmember Magalby. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I heard any opposed? None. Hearing none. Okay, it is passed. We have our draft plan passed. Thank you for a year's work,
Yes.
worth of work. We're crossing the finish line here very soon. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, I wanted to just thank all, your support for this. We couldn't have done it without you and
Oh,
for
thank you
budgeting
for
this
your
and
department.
the planning commission. I thank our administration and Mary and everybody's done such a great job, and Lisa and Landmark. So thank you. We sure appreciate it.
Thank you for your,
Bad when we're saying, correct this, tweak that, and spell, but it's an impressive document.
it is.
That's what's a draft.
That's exactly right. Just all helping each other. Go.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And for that, okay, motion by Councilmember Broderick, seconded by Councilmember Powell.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Great job.
Sorry, there's two of them in there. Is it that one? Yeah, I think that's it. Make sure.
We still court every Thursday?
Brian, what day is court? Brian, what day is court? What day is court? Thursday?
We're doing them online most of the time.
Online now, huh?
Yeah, so we do the first Thursday of the month, we try to do it in person, but a lot of people still do it online. You know, consider church, somebody can just log in instead of having to drive from somebody down here. And we have our Spanish interpreter come on us
Oh, as the
so the first Thursday, yeah. So that, there are quite a few people that like Spanish speaking folks.
they need that.
Not to be burdensome,
But that's what we
freak out if you forget. I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years.
log on and go to the Justice Court's webpage, and they have a front page, and they have a so we don't have
Doesn't
court.
route the same way? I know that they're online.
Right, I think it's the same.
My son, he's had some theft at his business in Pleasant Grove. And he finally got Cameron, yes, they're being sad.